Today was Samantha's big day. She was getting married, but things had gone wrong from the very morning. The best hairdresser in town got stuck in traffic, and the zipper on her wedding dress became stuck and nearly broke. "You're just too nervous," her best friend Claire tried to calm the bride. "Calm down, breathe deeply, everything will be fine." The bride's younger sister Melinda looked into the room. "Samantha, you're such a beauty today," she exclaimed. "Melinda, your sister has always been beautiful. Lucky Angelo, his future wife, cooks deliciously, does needlework, and manages everything around the house perfectly. It's no wonder Angelo's friends admire her," said the maid of honour. Angelo, the future husband, was a deputy director at a consulting company. Samantha worked there as a legal consultant. She was beautiful, with perfect hair. At work, she always wore her long, light blonde hair in a neat bun. Though Samantha might have seemed arrogant at first glance, she was actually friendly and responsible. Angelo had to work hard to win her attention. She was cautious with men, taking time to trust them. Experiences had taught her this wisdom. Samantha's first love came at 17. Ben was 5 years older and seemed like a prince to her, courting her skillfully and kissing her passionately. Samantha believed she'd never meet anyone better. When she brought Ben home, her mother was sceptical. "He's not right for you, daughter. He doesn't inspire my confidence," her mother warned. "Take your time." But Samantha wouldn't listen. Blindly in love, she believed marriage would change him. "So what if he's a loader? So what if he drinks sometimes? He'll quit when we're married," she thought. One day, Samantha went to his apartment. When she rang the doorbell, a drunken Ben opened. Then a woman emerged from the apartment, announcing she was his wife. "Why did you come here, you young fool?" the woman snapped. Samantha was stunned. She barely remembered getting home. Her world had shattered. Seeing her daughter's state, her mother knew something terrible had happened. She held Samantha close as she burst into tears. "He deceived me. He has a wife. You warned me," Samantha sobbed. "I should have listened to you. I was so naive and foolish." Yet another heartbreak awaited her at 19. While studying at university, Eric, a young teacher, began courting her. They enjoyed walks, movies and exhibitions together. Samantha was fascinated by him, hardly believing such an attractive man would notice her. After 4 months, she introduced him to her mother, who cautioned her again. "Samantha, don't rush. Watch him carefully." Then one day, Eric took Samantha to a cafe. "I'm the happiest man in the world, because the most beautiful girl in the world is sitting near me now," he said. "Samantha, I'm so happy we're together. I love you very much." As he leaned in to kiss her, a pregnant woman approached their table and, with tears, started begging Eric to come home. "Who are you?" Samantha asked in shock. "I'm Eric's fiancé. He's about to become a father. Please leave him alone," the woman pleaded. "I wish you much happiness," Samantha mumbled, rising from the table. She hurried outside and collapsed on a bench, trembling. 5 years passed after that. Samantha was no longer naive and trusting. She had grown into a confident woman who valued herself and protected her heart. When she met Angelo, she was immediately drawn to him. He was athletic, with slightly curly dark blonde hair and grey-blue eyes. He also noticed Samantha right away and began courting her. However, he saw no reciprocity from the girl, which embarrassed him. Usually he didn't spend much time courting women. He'd buy a fancy bouquet, invite his chosen one to a restaurant, and that was it. Women could never resist him. But with Samantha, everything was different. When Angelo gave her flowers, expecting her to be pleased, Samantha explained she couldn't accept them due to her rose allergy. Angelo gave the bouquet to his secretary, who was delighted, but his heart remained captivated by the elusive Samantha. Angelo was experienced and understood well that women sometimes feigned indifference while secretly yearning for romance. Determined not to give up, he bought tickets to a movie premiere, left them on Samantha's desk with a note. "I'll wait for you at the cinema." But disappointment awaited. Samantha never appeared. That evening her mother was celebrating an anniversary. Their apartment was full of guests, Mum's best friends and their husbands, and work colleagues. Samantha greeted everyone, helped with coats and directed them to the dining room. Just as they were about to begin celebrating, the doorbell rang. "Mum, are we expecting anyone else?" asked Samantha. "No, everyone's already here." When Samantha opened the door, she found Angelo staring at her with cold eyes. "Good evening. I was waiting for you at the cinema." "Samantha, who is it? Invite your guest to join us," her mother called out. "It's my mother's birthday party. Please, come in." The celebration turned out wonderfully. Angelo turned out to be the life and soul of the party, entertaining guests and even dancing with Melinda. Samantha's younger sister took quite a liking to him. "If you don't want him, pass him my way," she teased her older sister. "Let's not rush things, sis," Samantha replied. From that day on, she began to see Angelo differently. They started going out together, to cafes, restaurants, exhibitions, and walks in the park. "How beautiful you are," Angelo would say admiringly, words that always warmed Samantha's heart. A year and a half later, Angelo proposed. At 26, Samantha felt ready to start a family, and she accepted. Their wedding was spectacular, with about 40 guests, colleagues, relatives and friends. Samantha chose her friend Claire as maid of honour. "Well, Samantha, you're a married woman now. How does it feel?" "I'm still getting used to it," Samantha answered. "You know," Claire mused, "I heard somewhere that love only lasts 3 years. After that, it's just habit." "Why 3 years?" Samantha wondered. "That's love's expiration date." Claire laughed. "Don't say that," Samantha protested. "Angelo has been courting me for 1.5 years, and our love is real." "I'm sorry, Samantha. I didn't mean anything by it. Of course you'll be happy. Your husband adores you." And so began Samantha's married life. 5 months later, an overjoyed Samantha announced to her husband that they were expecting a child. Angelo embraced and kissed her, grateful for this precious gift. His joy doubled when he learned it would be a boy. The only shadow over their happiness was her difficult pregnancy. Severe morning sickness prevented Samantha from cooking. Her mother and mother-in-law often came by to help prepare meals. Samantha's feet swelled so badly she could barely wear shoes a size larger than normal. Finally, Samantha delivered a healthy baby. When she and little Roger arrived home, a perfect nursery awaited them. Angelo had arranged everything: a crib with a lace canopy by the window, the room filled with toys. However, the baby proved quite restless. Samantha spent most nights rocking and feeding him. During the day, she tended to housework, mopping floors, dusting, cooking dinner. One day, passing a mirror, she caught sight of her reflection. "What do I look like?" Samantha thought, realizing that her husband sees beautiful and well-groomed girls at work, while she has turned into some kind of zombie. Tears came to her eyes, but she immediately remembered that Angelo would soon come from work and began to set the table. Samantha gained a little weight after childbirth, but it made her even more feminine. When her son Roger was 1.5 years old, Samantha became pregnant again. The young woman didn't even want to tell Angelo about it, thinking she should just terminate it, but her sister Melinda insisted that her spouse had the right to know everything. In the evening, when little Roger fell asleep, she told her husband everything. "Angelo, I'm expecting a child, but it's not the right time. I mean, Roger is still too young, and if the pregnancy becomes difficult, who will look after him? Let's wait at least 2 years before thinking about a second child." "Samantha, please keep in mind you're 28 years old. Every year it will become more difficult to give birth and care for a child. I'll hire a nanny. I'm totally against abortion." The second pregnancy was much calmer, without the severe morning sickness she had experienced before. Samantha gave birth to a daughter right on her due date, and when the woman saw the newborn, she realised how right Angelo had been. The baby was adorable, impossible not to love. Life became harder with two little ones. When one needed to sleep, the other wanted to play. Though Angelo had promised a nanny, he quickly forgot about it once he saw how well Samantha managed on her own. Fortunately, little Molly was calmer than her brother. Despite being terribly tired, Samantha kept the apartment perfectly clean. She cooked delicious dinners and washed and ironed Angelo's clothes, but had no time for herself. One day, having no strength left at all, Samantha told herself, "I will rest for just 10 minutes." And she fell into a deep sleep immediately. She woke to her husband shaking her shoulder. Samantha opened her eyes to find Angelo holding a crying Molly. Looking at the clock, she realised the baby should have been fed long ago. "Did you go to bed without feeding Molly?" Angelo asked. Resentment welled up inside Samantha. "Yes, I passed by the bed, fell on it, and couldn't get up again." It was their first fight. "Anyway, stop yelling at me. You might scare Roger and Molly. Don't you realise that I'm a human being, not a robot? I'm exhausted. I need your support and understanding, but you just criticise me. When was the last time you took the kids out? You could at least take them on your day off, so I could sleep for a couple of hours. Your clothes are always clean and ironed, the apartment's spotless, dinner's always ready. I do all this myself, and my strength is running out." Samantha burst into tears. "You should take better care of yourself," Angelo replied only and handed Molly to his wife. After this conversation, Angelo began walking the children out on weekends, but Samantha, as many women before and after her, didn't use this time to sleep. Instead, she tidied the apartment, cooked dinner, and occasionally just lay on the bed. She had never realised just how pleasant it could be to lie in silence and solitude. However, she at least started going to a fitness club on Sundays. Time went on. The children grew up healthy, and everything seemed fine. But Samantha had a bad feeling. When her mother visited, Samantha shared her concerns. "Don't think about bad things. Negative thoughts attract bad events. Look how wonderful your kids are." "Mum, I understand, but for some reason my stomach feels uneasy. By the way, how's Melinda doing? Is she getting married yet?" "I keep asking her that too. She's living separately now. She met a man who rented an apartment for her. Melinda says she's fallen head over heels in love with him. She might get married soon." "That would be wonderful," Samantha said. She promised to bring him to meet us as soon as they started talking about marriage. The New Year's corporate party was approaching. It was always a grand celebration, but in her daily routine, Samantha had completely forgotten about it, and Angelo hadn't mentioned the event. On the day of the party, her husband called to say he would be late, and then at 10:30 that evening, Samantha received a call from her colleagues asking why she hadn't come to the party. "Girls, I completely forgot. In a year's time, I'll come for sure. Angelo will cover for both of us." "Samantha, but he wasn't at the restaurant. We thought he went to pick you up. Well, take care and may your children grow up healthy and obedient. Bye." Samantha's heart sank. Her intuition had not deceived her. She called her husband, but his phone was unavailable. After putting the children to bed, the woman waited in the kitchen. At 2:30 in the morning, she saw Angelo's car pull up through the window, and a few minutes later, he quietly entered the house. "Where have you been? Don't tell me you were at the corporate party. I know you weren't there. You've been cheating on me for a while now. Just be honest and admit you have someone else." "What are you talking about, Samantha? I was in negotiations. We had a few drinks afterward. What's the problem?" Though Angelo spoke convincingly, he kept his distance, offering neither a hug nor a kiss. Samantha didn't believe him. She went to sleep on the sofa while he took the bedroom. Times were difficult for their family. The children were constantly ill, and to Samantha it seemed endless. Angelo spent long hours at work, coming home late. He claimed he couldn't work from home because the children were too noisy. "I get an instant headache," he complained to his mother-in-law some day. "And what about Samantha? She lives with the children day and night, and you won't help her?" After that conversation, when Samantha's mother left, he told his wife that her mother wasn't welcome in their house anymore. "Maybe the children and I should leave too?" asked Samantha. "Why do you keep wearing me down? I'm trying my best for all of us." "Angelo, but I also work," answered Samantha. "I work around the clock, without pay, and all I get is advice to take better care of myself. It's easy to give advice when the closet is full of clean, pressed clothes, the apartment is spotless and dinner is ready." The next morning, Samantha called a taxi and left with the children to her mother's house. How wonderful, he thought. No shouting or running around. Finally, some peace. And instead of calling Samantha, the man got in his car and drove to where he knew the most valuable woman in the world would be waiting. He missed her. So cheerful, bright and accommodating. An irresistible force drew him to her. She greeted him joyfully. "Honey, how long can you stay with me?" "We have the whole night," he replied, and the woman threw her arms around his neck with delight. Angelo felt like a real man. His mistress's mere presence brought such joy, and that's why he was drawn to her. Their relationship wasn't just about physical pleasure. It made him feel masculine again. With Samantha, things hadn't been the same for a long time. But here, he found affection, understanding, and care. Here, he felt calm and comfortable, unlike at home. This woman tried to please him in everything. They shared a passionate night, falling asleep late at night. Meanwhile, Samantha's mother advised, "You shouldn't leave your husband for so long." "Mum, it's been 3 days, and he hasn't called once. He doesn't care about me or the children. If he loved us, he'd act differently." "Samantha, go home. I'll watch the kids so you and Angelo can spend the weekend together." "All right. Maybe it's a good idea. I'll do as you say." 3 days at her mother's home had transformed Samantha. With just a touch of mascara and lip gloss, she looked radiant again. But Angelo wasn't home. Samantha waited all day, but he never appeared. She cleaned the house and prepared dinner, yet he didn't come home that night. Sunday morning, she called him without a response. She left a note before returning to her mother's. "Angelo, I came by but missed you. Call me. We need to discuss our future. Samantha." Meanwhile, Angelo was with his mistress. He admired her passion and how she never troubled him with problems. A woman should support and adore her man, he thought, embracing her. That evening he returned home. Evidence of Samantha's visit was clear. The apartment was tidy and filled with the aroma of roasted turkey. Finding her note, he called. "Hi, I just got back from a business trip. Are you still at your mum's? I've missed you. I'll come get you now, okay?" "Okay," Samantha agreed. "See, you worried for nothing," her mother said. Angelo noticed Samantha's transformation. "Yes, Angelo, all I needed was some proper rest." They went to bed together that night, but there was no intimacy between them. They talked about Roger and Molly and work until the man fell asleep. He must be tired from the road, Samantha thought sadly and disappointedly. The next day, the woman wanted to discuss her worries, so she called Melinda. "Sis, hi. It's been so long since we've seen each other. Come over, I need to talk to you." "Hi, Samantha. I can't come until Sunday. Work's keeping me busy." "Perfect. Angelo will take the kids out, and we can have a quiet talk." Melinda was nothing like Samantha. She was straightforward and spoke her mind freely. She was almost always cheerful, with a bright smile on her face. Though 3 years younger than Samantha, she loved giving her older sister advice about men, how to attract them, what to say. Samantha found this amusing. Nevertheless, she adored her younger sister, They had been very close in childhood. On Sunday, both women were overjoyed to meet. Samantha noticed Melinda looked more beautiful than ever. "That's what love does to a person," she thought, and said aloud, "Mum told me you met a man." "Yes," Melinda replied, lowering her eyes shyly. "Why so bashful? It's wonderful to love and be loved. Tell me about him." "He's handsome, caring, and generous. He even rented an apartment for me. I'm thrilled with him. I'm so happy for you. When will you marry him?" "We haven't been dating long, haven't even thought about marriage yet, so I don't want to rush things. It's complicated. What did you want to talk about?" Samantha sighed. "I think Angelo is cheating on me. He stopped paying attention to me lately. He used to be so passionate in bed, but now he shows no interest. I think he's spending his energy on his mistress. I stayed at Mum's with the kids for 3 days, and Angelo wasn't home during that time. He claimed he was on a business trip. I checked. There was no trip. I'm scared of losing him. We have small children, but I can't stay silent. I'm enabling his cheating. Melinda, what should I do?" "First, don't panic. Shield your children from your worries. If he does have a mistress, you need to decide, stay or leave. Secondly, be careful. If you reveal that you know everything, you'll force the issue of divorce. Stay level-headed. I've read that unfaithful husbands rarely leave for their mistresses, and if they do, they usually return to their wives. If Angelo hasn't left you yet, he probably won't leave for her. Don't rush into divorce. Take care of yourself. Spend some time away from home, and don't neglect yourself." The sisters talked more before Melinda left. "Thank you, dear. I feel better after talking to you." Samantha hugged Melinda as a farewell. That evening, she told her husband she wanted to return to work and they needed to hire a nanny. Angelo objected, but Samantha remained firm. "I won't start working until we find a good nanny. Don't worry." Angelo had to agree. The very next day, Samantha interviewed a woman with kindergarten experience. Mrs. Angus was a pleasant, petite woman, about 50 years, with short blonde hair. The children watched her curiously. The boy approached and said, "My name is Roger. Pleased to meet you." Molly came over too. The nanny-to-be picked her up, and throughout her visit, the girl wouldn't leave her arms. "Mrs. Angus, the children have gotten along with you. Come tomorrow at 8:30. Your workday will end at 6. Don't worry about payment. We'll be fair." When Samantha returned after her first day back at work, she heard children's laughter. Mrs. Angus was telling Roger and Molly a story. The children saw their mother, ran to kiss her, then hurried back to their nanny. So, Samantha got a reliable assistant. She missed her work and happily plunged back into business. Gradually, she lost the excess weight and regained her former shape. Samantha sensed Angelo's attention returning. They became intimate again, and she exhaled with relief. Meanwhile, Angelo began visiting his mistress less frequently, and she was furious. "You promised to tell her everything. You've deceived her for almost a year, and now you decide to play the faithful husband?" "I wanted to tell her, but she's attractive again. She's lost weight. I can't leave her. I love her. And we have kids." "You do? What about me? You said you loved me." "I'm confused. I love you too. But I can't leave Samantha." "When will you come see me again?" "In 3 days, perhaps." Angelo went outside and sighed heavily. This affair had begun to strain him. He decided it was time to end it. 3 days later, Samantha was at work, reviewing reports. Suddenly, a message appeared on her phone. "Your husband is with his mistress now. Come to this address." Without delaying, Samantha called a taxi and left. That day, Angelo intended to end things with his mistress. He spoke firmly so that she'd have no hope of continuing the affair. But when he finished speaking, She asked for one last time together. Though he refused at first, she knew how to ignite his desire. Then the doorbell rang. Angelo opened it and froze in shock. There was Samantha, staring at his bare chest and then at her sister, appearing in the hallway. "Melinda, so you're the one my husband's been cheating with?" "Angelo, I hate you," Samantha shouted and fled the apartment. "Samantha, wait, I can explain." Angelo called after her, but she wouldn't listen. "How did she find out about us? Who gave her your address?" "How should I know?" Melinda replied, avoiding his gaze. "Clearly you told her. Did you think I'd leave her for you? You fool, you've ruined everything." Though Angelo knew Samantha wouldn't let him in, he went home anyway. His bags were already outside the door. He rang the bell repeatedly, but no one answered. "To hell with you," he shouted angrily. "Samantha, please open up for your husband. You should talk before making any fatal mistakes," the nanny pitched in. "Mrs. Angus, mind the children. I don't need your advice." "Excuse me," said the nanny, taking the children to their room. Meanwhile, Angelo chose a hotel over going to Melinda's. He wanted to see no one. After 2.5 months in the hotel, he still ignored Melinda's constant calls. He saw Samantha daily at work and knew that she filed for divorce. The court granted them reconciliation time, though Samantha deemed it unnecessary. Their minds were made up. So, once it expired, they divorced. One evening, lying in bed, Angelo reflected, "I wanted solitude, and now I have it. Why am I unhappy then? Everything seems to be fine, but my conscience apparently won't let me rest. I cheated on Samantha, failed as a father, and abandoned my children." However, these remorseful feelings were fleeting. As for Samantha, she tried to adjust to her new role. But first, she decided to apologize to Mrs. Angus. "Mrs. Angus, I want to apologize for my rudeness that day. I should have controlled my temper. Please forgive me. And thank you for staying with me and the kids during these dark days, and for your huge support." "Oh, Samantha, I understand how difficult this is for you. Don't isolate yourself or dwell alone with your worries. That path leads to depression. Don't blame yourself. You're strong, and you'll get through this." Samantha rested her head on Mrs. Angus's shoulder, crying softly like a child, but already feeling better. Mrs. Angus was right. She would survive this. She had 2 beautiful children, and though she still had feelings for Angelo, his betrayal was slowly erasing them from her heart. "Thank you, Mrs. Angus. You're not just a wonderful nanny. You've become family to me." A few weeks later, Samantha received a call from her worried mother. "Hello, dear. How are you? I'm concerned about Melinda. She's moved back home and something's wrong. Has she mentioned to you anything about her relationship?" "Mum, you should ask her directly. I can't say anything now. I'm sorry." "I'm terrified she'll do something rash. I've never seen her like this. Besides, she's about to move to another town to her school friend. Samantha, please tell me what you know. I'm sick with worry." "Mum, I can't tell you yet. The truth about Melinda will take time to explain." "Samantha, what do you mean? Did she deceive someone?" "Much worse." Then a letter arrived for Samantha, with no return address, but she recognized her sister's handwriting. Though tempted to throw it away, she still read it. "Samantha, I'm so sorry for hurting you. I just wanted to be happy for a while, and I regret it now. Your Melinda." 3 years passed. Samantha worked and the children grew. Angelo visited them occasionally. Over those 3 years, he had other women who adored him and would have gladly married him, but he had no desire to marry any of them. He involuntarily compared each one to Samantha, and they all fell short. One day he arrived at Samantha's with a bouquet of flowers and gifts for the children. When he began speaking about his enduring love, she stopped him. "Angelo, I don't have any feelings for you anymore. Everything changed when I discovered your affair with Melinda. You're young and attractive. You'll find love again. Don't bring this up again. I've made up my mind." "But we were so happy together." "Yes, we were. I don't want to continue this conversation. I'm tired, and it's time for the kids to go to bed." Angelo left, devastated, finally accepting that he had lost Samantha forever. As for Samantha, she decided she didn't need men in her life. She had Roger and Molly, her mother and her beloved job. That was enough. "I need a real man. I won't settle for less. It's simple for me. He should be faithful, reliable, caring, and respect and love my children. But I doubt I'll ever meet such a man again. Nevertheless, everything is fine as it is." "Samantha, to find love you must first love yourself. Men are drawn to women who make them feel at ease. By the way, how will you celebrate New Year's?" "At home with my children and Mum. You're welcome to join us." "Samantha, let's invite Santa Claus. The children would love it. My neighbour always plays Santa for his relatives' children. He could visit Roger and Molly too. We'll learn holiday poems and songs, decorate the tree, hang garlands." "All right, Mrs. Angus. Arrange it with your acquaintance. I'll pay whatever is needed." "No, Samantha, he doesn't accept payment. He's quite well off. He simply enjoys making children happy. Besides, he's not married. He has 2 nephews he entertains this way." Samantha bought a beautiful Christmas tree. Mrs. Angus helped Roger and Molly decorate it with ornaments and lights, transforming the house into a festive wonderland. Their Santa Claus would arrive at 8:30, after visiting his brother's children. The children were delighted. Bill excelled at playing Santa Claus, with his commanding voice bringing the character to life. Samantha felt transported back to childhood, as if she had stepped into a fairy tale. Roger and Molly recited New Year poems and sang songs for Santa Claus. "Well, New Year approaches and I must rest," Santa Claus announced before bidding everyone farewell. On January the 3rd, Samantha's phone rang with a familiar booming voice. Bill, inviting her and the children for a walk. When they met, she saw him properly for the first time. A tall, handsome man with swarthy skin and eyes so brown they appeared almost black. Though 7 years her junior, Bill carried himself with confidence. After their walk, Samantha invited him home. They shared a meal, watched a New Year's movie with the children, and before leaving, Bill said, "Perhaps we could take the children to the sledding hill sometime." "I'll call you," Samantha replied softly. They spent the winter holidays together. The children adored Bill. He was just like a big kid himself, sledding with them, building snowmen, and joining in snowball fights. Melinda gazed pensively out the train window as it carried her away from home. The journey wasn't long, giving her time to reflect. She had fallen in love with Angelo at first sight. After her mother's birthday celebration, she had hoped Angelo would choose her, but he pursued Samantha instead. Their first intimate encounter happened a year ago after he called, wanting to meet at her home. Though at work she made an excuse and rushed to prepare everything meticulously, setting the table, lighting candles, donning a form-fitting dress. She smiled, remembering how Angelo had barely noticed her careful preparations, leading her straight to bed. Their passion had been exquisite and overwhelming. Their meetings became regular after that. Her friend Tara met her with a bouquet of flowers. She was still as cheerful, round-faced with freckles on her cheeks and nose and big blue eyes. "Hello, Melinda," Tara said with a smile, holding out the bouquet. "I came by car to pick you up, and I've already found you an apartment. You'll spend the night at my place, and tomorrow I'll help you move in." And so Melinda's new life began. The studio apartment was on the 2nd floor, simple but cosy. Melinda was a manicurist. Tara helped her get a job in a small beauty salon, and soon because of her hard working and excellent skills, she began to earn good money. But when Melinda came home, she often cried from loneliness. Though men often tried to court her, Melinda always compared them to Angelo, and they fell short. When Melinda thought about her past and future, she fell into despair. Could it be nothing good ahead of her? Sometimes Melinda went to parties with friends, but returning home only made her sadder. She hated those parties. So many people around, yet no one to talk to. No one needs me in this world, Melinda thought as she fell asleep alone. Sometimes she considered returning to her hometown. Maybe Angelo would miss her and want to resume their relationship. Melinda began having nightmares and waking up. Melinda often cried, realizing that her current loneliness was payback for betraying her sister. One more year passed. Nothing changed in Melinda's personal life. She dated men, yet they all vanished without explanation. "Tara, I feel terrible. Nobody needs me," she used to complain to her friend. "Yesterday I didn't even go to the salon. I didn't want my clients to see my condition." "What's wrong with you, Melinda? I don't recognize you. Where's my cheerful friend? Where's your spirit?" "It's all gone. Loneliness is consuming me. Sometimes I don't even want to live. It's so bad." When Melinda told Tara why she had left her hometown, she couldn't believe what she heard. "Melinda, what you had done was really cruel. How could you do that? I remember how your sister loved you. She studied with you when your parents weren't home." "I'm ashamed of what I did, but I don't regret anything. I loved and was loved. Angelo is such a wonderful man. I was happy with him." "But he was married. You took someone else's husband. I'm sorry to be blunt, Melinda, but if I were Samantha, I'd give you a good beating. You left children without a father." "Tara, please stop. I'm suffering enough. I've already paid for everything." A few weeks later, Tara called Melinda and invited her to their dacha for some relaxation in nature. A friend of her husband's would be there, a single man she wanted to introduce her to. Melinda agreed with pleasure. On the appointed day she arrived at her friend's place. The weather was beautiful, though Melinda felt slightly nervous. A grey Mercedes pulled up, and a man of medium height stepped out. Melinda noticed nothing remarkable about him, except his blonde hair and grey eyes. During the introduction, Melinda remained calm and polite. The man prepared kebabs, while Morris, the new acquaintance, played guitar beautifully. Melinda and Tara sang some of their favourite songs together. When Melinda was leaving, Morris offered Melinda a ride. He clearly liked her, but after dropping her off at her entrance, he simply drove away, without asking to come up for tea. Just like always. He doesn't want me either, Melinda thought. The next day she asked Tara if Morris had mentioned her, but her friend said he hadn't called or asked about her. Another disappointment, Melinda sighed. Wait, maybe this is his strategy, Tara said. Don't jump to conclusions. He'll probably call. 5 more days passed without a call from Morris. Melinda couldn't understand why this man occupied her thoughts, perhaps because things hadn't ended as she'd hoped. A week later, Morris finally called. The first date was thrilling. Melinda wore a blue cocktail dress, styled her hair up to show her neck, and applied eyeshadow, mascara and lipstick. This should do, she thought. Black stilettos completed her outfit. Her hands were cold with excitement when the doorbell rang. Morris stood there in a perfectly fitted grey suit, his eyes fixed on Melinda. You look lovely tonight. Melinda had been dating Morris for 5 months. Their relationship wasn't particularly passionate, more respectful and steady. One day Melinda received a letter from her mother, who preferred writing letters the old-fashioned way, instead of talking on the phone. Samantha is getting married to Bill, a good man, Though 7 years younger than her, she is pregnant. Roger and Molly adore him. Mrs. Angus still works for them, helping the children with their lessons. Angelo married some girl he had made pregnant. He wants to leave her, but her wealthy, well-connected relatives forced him to the registry office. Melinda, I've missed you terribly. Come home for a few days. Tell me how you're doing and about your love life. Kisses and hugs, my darling. After reading the letter, Melinda thought bitterly about how Samantha had always been lucky. 2 children and such a good man again. Why did some people get everything while others had to fight for their happiness? Nevertheless, she decided to visit home to congratulate Samantha and make peace with her. Deep down, she also wanted to show her sister that she settled well too, so she invited Morris along. When her mother opened the door and saw her youngest daughter, she exclaimed, "Melinda, why didn't you tell me you were coming? I'm so glad to see you." "Mum, I'm happy to meet you too, and meet Morris, my close friend." At this moment, Samantha came out from the kitchen. After a moment of hesitation, Melinda said, "Hello, little sister. Congratulations on your wedding day." "Why have you come?" Samantha asked without welcoming. "I came to see our mum, and to see you, and apologise for my past mistakes. Let's forget the offences." "I can't forget anything," Samantha replied. "I forgave you, but I cannot forget the past." "What happened between you two?" the mother demanded. "Explain, finally." "Nothing special. Melinda just slept with my husband and ruined my family, and now she's asking me to forgive her. Well, Mum, I'm going home. I'll call you later. Bye." The mother was shocked. Melinda stood with heart, head down in silence. The next day, before leaving town, Melinda called her sister one more time, apologised again, and wished her well. "All the best to you too," Samantha replied coldly and hung up. During the drive back, Morris barely spoke to Melinda. Each was lost in their thoughts. Melinda wondering what Morris would do after Samantha's revelation, while the man realised Melinda wasn't as straightforward as he had believed. He saw her differently now and was glad he hadn't proposed. When they reached her house, he gave her a curt goodbye and drove away. Inside her apartment, Melinda collapsed onto her bed, sobbing. She knew Morris would never call again. Her fresh start in this city had failed. After weighing all pros and cons, the woman decided to return home forever. 4 years had passed. Nothing had changed in Melinda's life, except she had put on a little weight, but it suited her. One day after work, she decided to take a walk in the park. The weather was pleasant, the sun shining, a light breeze blowing. Melinda sat down on a bench and closed her eyes in pleasure. "Good evening," came the quiet voice of an elderly woman. "Hello," Melinda said in surprise, opening her eyes to see a short, thin old woman wearing a handkerchief with ancient patterns. "Do we know each other?" Melinda asked. "No, we don't know each other, but I sense that your soul is envious. You are very proud, and pride is a grave sin. Go to the church for confession, and everything will work out for you." Melinda blinked in surprise, and when she opened her eyes, the strange elderly woman had vanished. Where had she gone so quickly? For someone so elderly, she had disappeared with remarkable speed. Melinda felt uneasy and went home, but the conversation with the elderly woman lingered in her mind. Eventually, she began to think that she really should visit the church, and one Sunday she did it. Melinda found herself deeply moved in the church, and soon she began visiting it every Sunday. After proper preparation, she confessed her sins to the priest. Afterward, her heart felt lighter. Another year passed. Melinda longed to see that elderly woman again, and then one day it unexpectedly happened. She hurried to her, but before she could speak, the woman said, "Don't say anything. I know everything. It's good that you confessed. Now your life will change for the better. Keep your soul from sin." The elderly woman rose from the bench and walked away. Later, Melinda met her future husband in the church, a man of about 45 who stood weeping bitterly. She learned that his wife and son had died in a car accident. Melinda and Paul began supporting each other. 10 months later, they married. With Samantha, she never managed to fully reconcile, though they would see each other occasionally at family holidays.